And they know what kind of person you are, but the bottom line was very simple. The state needed a legit big name. They weren't getting no big names. Guarini was nothing.
Wait, the state didn't need it.
The feds. The feds.
Not the feds. Christie.
Well,
okay.
Well,
but that reminds me, like you keep talking about the plans and trying to get to the bottom of it. The thing that is so fortunate, okay, I mean, for you personally it's not fortunate, but for probably the rest of us, it's fortunate that you were one of the people that got swept up in this, because you were somebody that was in a position to stand your ground and go to trial. There's other people, I'm sure, that have pleaded out because that's the simplest thing to do. Let me put this behind me, okay? And I'm going to, like, I don't even know this guy. Mariano Vega, okay? When I read what they released from the feds, he was doing very much like you're talking about. Dweck wanted to keep talking about money, cash, donations, and he kept saying, show me the plans.
Right.
Where's the plans, okay?
Right.
And this is a guy, whatever situation he's in, personal situation, he decided, I better just plead out. I cannot afford to fight this, okay?
Right.
And fortunately for us, you could afford to fight this.
Well, you had your faith and your belief.
I couldn't afford, Mr. Ransom and Coach.
You had
my
your faith
family
and belief.
I lost a lot of money. Not lost a lot of money. We spent a lot of money, and then at the end of the day, we had to have the government pick up the rest. But like you're saying, I just couldn't see going down without giving it a fight, because I knew what I had done and the way I was raised
and your
what
faith
I was
and your belief that all the years of your service.
Right. Not only that, I believe that I prayed a lot. We talked about prayer, and one of the things that was beneficial to me was my prayer, my minister, who I called right after this happened. I was looking for people who I could call that would be credible, and by the way, he was the police chaplain. I made him a police chaplain, so I'm calling him to go with me to give this back and be my witness, because once I realized what was in my car, I knew I couldn't go back to the guys that set me up.
Right.
But if it wasn't for Jesus Christ, who's my Lord and Savior, and I'm not ashamed to say that, I never expected to be exonerated of all 6 charges. I was prayerful, and I prayed, and I kept praying, and as the trial went on and more came up, and I'm not taking anything away from Peter Willis, but he did a great job.
That's your attorney, Peter.
My attorney.
He is one of the best attorneys in Jersey City.
And Dorothy Gordon, who was my investigator, and Jonathan Minan, who was also there. They did a masterful job. There were times that I felt, here I am, like David and Goliath against the government, and I only have 3 people who were working day and night, tooth and nail, scraping and scrimping. I'm coming up. I sold jewelry. I sold valuables. My sons, my mother, and everybody in the family chipped in. I took money that I had saved for my grandkids' college education, and I used all of that. And we still, at the end of the day, and I took a loan on my property, and still at the end of the day, I didn't have enough money, and I had to come up with more. But Peter worked it out through the government, or however that program is. They picked up the rest. But the fact is, Dorothy Gordon dug up so much information that we saw, and stuff that they did not allow. They came up with new rules. All of a sudden, you had to go to the Attorney General to find out if you could call the FBI agents who took who were involved.
I remember that playing out in court.
Yes.
Like, not in court, they would dismiss the jury, but they would still allow the people to watch them arguing over that. But doesn't that also go back to this thing about, there's these prosecutors. I would like to lay this all at the feet of Chris Christie, okay? Right. Certainly, this guy's the mastermind behind it, but he's gone. He's in the governor's office. He's not in the U.S. Attorney's office anymore. You had 2 prosecutors that, as far as I could tell, they knew you were not guilty,
Yes,
but they were pursuing this anyway. Where's the justice? They're supposed to go after justice, okay?
And that's what Peter brought up, and that's what I looked at. I kept saying to myself, and I have to thank everybody who prayed for me and my family, the friends. You know, I lost a lot. I found out a lot about people. I found out there are people who stick with you through thick and thin, and there are those fair weather friends that
while you're on top.
I want to mention somebody else. I don't know his name, okay? I know that he was riding in your Ford Flex, and he had to have the seat reclined for his back, and he was...
Donald Wilson.
Okay. He was one of the people because they put on their prosecution, and then you put on your defense, and he was one of your defense witnesses.
Right.
Okay? A thing that after he got done that struck me, as he was getting up to leave, and he's done testifying, he said, "Can I sit over here?" In other words, could he sit and watch it? Okay, because like people just assume you're going to testify and you leave and you go out the room.
Right.
He wanted to stay and see what's going to happen now.
Right.
In other words, he's your friend.
Yes, he is. And he came forward. There were two other people that I was hoping that were at the meetings I was at. I was in Somerset, New Jersey, the whole day from 9 in the morning. I was
just to explain to people, this is the day that you supposedly took the $10,000.
Right.
And by the way, I was talking to somebody who said, "Well, I heard he gave back half the money, and then he tried to pay his lawyer with some of it." Okay, because that's the way when people read the paper, they think they get the story, and that's not the story at all.
No, it's not.
All right, but
they didn't even, when we went into the court, my lawyer told them that they presented the $10,000. They had no photocopies of the money. That money was never touched. I never spent a dime of it. My family never used a dime. Peter had the money from the time I retained him in his safe a few weeks later.
The reason that was not immediately given back is because you discovered it late on a Friday afternoon.
Right.
You were leaving early Saturday morning on vacation.
Exactly.
Okay?
And see...
Do you still have the timeshare?
Yes.
Okay.
I was trying to sell it.
Are you going there this summer?
Yes, I am. We haven't been there in 2 years, since 2009.
Yeah.
But when it happened and it was in my car and I looked and saw it was cash, I immediately started making phone calls to people that would go with me to give it back. I looked for Mr. Cheatham. I went by his house. I looked to give it back because I wanted to have it out of my hand. I come from a neighborhood and society as you do. You know, I don't want to be the one that's known as a rat.
Right.
I don't want to be the guy that turns somebody in. So I felt that if I gave it back,
just absent yourself from it and let him get
it out of my hands.
Not the way you brought yourself to growing up and everything you stood for.
There was another thing that the prosecution put on, and they showed like 4 pictures out in the parking lot, of which, if they showed 4, they took 300.
Yes, they did.
And they showed 4 of them that made it look like you're smiling at this envelope of cash, you're leading the guys to your car, you have, but when they did the video, you show that you're walking by, you're walking by as the guy pulls out an envelope that you probably didn't even see.
I didn't see the envelope, I walked straight by to my car.
This young lady, this prosecutor goes, and she blew the thing up. I wish I had a copy of that picture. Is that you smiling? In that picture, and you're like, well, I don't know whether I'm smiling or not, you know, and you had to go look at it like,
close.
Yes, that's me smiling. Now, I have to tell you, you smile a lot.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you're happy.
But you know what? Every smile isn't a smile of happiness. Sometimes there's smiles to mask what you're really feeling. I smiled in the parking lot of the Broadway Diner when I was about to grab Dweck.
Yeah.
And Dweck even commented that he thought I was crazy. That didn't come up because in the parking lot I was an insane man.
Yeah.
But I smiled because I didn't want to alarm anyone or show my true feelings.
I was at the courthouse one day, and I'm going. There's a photographer out there, and I was talking, striking up he's an AP guy.
Right.
I said, you know, you get pictures of the witnesses and the accused and whatever. Is any pictures of like the prosecution? I'd like to see pictures of them, you know. And anyway, he had taken a picture of you, a couple of pictures as you were coming in, but he wasn't sure if it was you. And he shows me on his camera, is this him? And I go, it's him. And you were smiling.
I was smiling because I knew, and I was looking at him.
You were smiling.
I said, here he is. I thought I was going to get away with not having any photos.
But they try to make it because you're smiling, like that's a
sign of being guilty.
It's some criminal behavior, this smiling thing.
Well, it was everything, and thank God to the FBI, to the witnesses that came for, to Assemblyman Wisniewski, to the DEP director and the DOT director, because they told exactly what happened.
Sure.
There was I never asked them to do anything. I never asked them to comply, to give favorable treatment. I was just trying to get information.
I'm sure they knew you wouldn't. They all knew you anyway. And they knew that you wouldn't do something like that.
And it was such a, you know, I thought I was helping a friend. Ed Cheatham and I go way, way back. We go way back to high school. We didn't know each other as well, but we grew to know each other. And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, nobody would put themselves in this type of harm's way. And I'm asking, and that's my naivety, because I kept saying to him, something's wrong with this guy. But I didn't follow my gut.
I wonder if you have yet learned anything from this, because I saw you a couple of weeks ago. We were at, went to see the movies. I went to see True Grit.
Yes.
You were there with your wife. And then we're talking a little bit out in the lobby after the movie. And then as we're talking, like your wife went ahead to the car, but we're walking out to your car talking. And I'm thinking, how much videotape have I seen of people walking out to your car with you, trying to get you to look like you're saying something bad or doing something bad? If that was me, I would never let anybody walk me to my car again. I would never trust anybody to do that, you know?
I think you learned a lot.
I felt awkward.
I think that guy was in your corner all the way.
But I'm saying I felt awkward in that situation, like, I'm walking Harvey Smith out to his car.
I had a witness. I had a witness, my wife. And I felt that, like I was saying, there were people with integrity that came in, and there are people that didn't have any integrity. That, you know, the truth is what it is.
You know what's unfortunate? Your treasurer seemed like such a fine young man. He probably is.
Yes,
but he got scared, and he didn't tell the truth on the stand.
Well, I don't think, you're right, and I don't think he was given the best advice by the people that advised him. I think
Which is probably the prosecutors.
Well, more than just that. I don't know who it was, but he was advised. Richard Green, I had never thought that he was a bad guy, and the stories that he told, which were totally different. It's just amazing that at the end of the day, thank God, that I was the type of public servant that we talked about. There were no 302s or 304s in my background where they had investigated.
Which is like
in my 15
reports
years.
from these federal agents. We're out of time, and I'm really sorry that all we talked about was this trial.
I'm honored that we had you, and I am so happy you won.
Thank you, and I am too. And
because I know the kind of public servant you are. You served me in this community.
Thank you, and I appreciate the time.
And I hope to God that someday you may choose to get involved again.
Calm down. Okay, and good question. I hope you do. I hope you do.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
Harvey.
Thank you.
Again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Harvey Smith.
Thank you.